Oh, hello, James. Thank you for accepting our interview for the Berning Green TV.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're running for public advocate
Yes, that's right.
and on the Green Party. Now, could you please tell us about how did you start in politics and why the Green Party?
Well, it's really funny because I grew up in Harlem, and when I was growing up, we have a lot of Democratic, politicians that come into the neighborhood. They come around election day asking for votes. Then we say, hey, but our neighborhood's collapsing and crumbling. What are you going to do for us? And they say, oh, our hands tied and whatever, and give us a bunch of excuses. And then a few more years later to go by, and they come asking for our votes again. And so I was like, wait a minute, but you guys didn't do anything last time you came around. And so ever since I was pretty young, since about my son's age, I was just turned off by the whole political process. I couldn't even be bothered.
How old is he?
I'm 12 years old.
12 years.
Yeah, so his age, I was just like, this system is just not right. It rewards people for their failures, and people just come to your door and they think that they're going to get your vote because they're not the Republican, but the Democrat that's coming to my door has no values, no issues, and anything that relates to me. So at an early age, I guess I was considered an anarchist because I just felt this system needs to be torn apart and rebuilt. I saw a lot of injustice in it. So I didn't vote until I was 35 years old, until the 2000 elections came around, and I heard about Ralph Nader.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, Ralph Nader, because I remember him from when I was a child on like the Mike Douglas show, talking with John Lennon about civic responsibility and all this. I was like, wow, he's running for president? And what's this Green Party? And then it was like, oh my God, there's more parties than just these two parties that everyone's told me my entire life. Mm-hmm. And right then I felt so stupid. I felt like, why didn't I know these things? So I made it a point to not only let people know about the Green Party, but also other parties, other alternatives out there. And so after several years of doing that, something very personal happened with me where I was adopted, but I didn't know it until after my parents had died. And so for 25 years I was looking and whatever, and I finally found my mom 4 years ago. But then when I found her, the first thing she told me, well, first she said, I hope you're not mad at me for giving you up for adoption. And then the next thing she told me was, I prayed I would see you again. I prayed for 48 years I would see you again before I died. And that was the one. That was like, no mother should have to go through that. The only reason we were separated was because New York State has this law that says children born in New York State that are given up for adoption are not allowed to find their natural mothers, natural parents. And they say the same thing for the mothers, that they're not allowed to find their natural children. Even though, when you actually look at the things that they signed, there's nothing in there saying that they're promised that they're not allowed to meet. Mm-hmm. So that was the injustice. That was the one that really got me to get from behind the scenes of going on the street, handing out flyers, helping with database, to actually get up and raise this particular issue up to the political arena. And so with that, actually a lot of people heard and got involved with the campaign. A lot of adoptee rights activists got involved with the campaign. A lot of people that are just about social justice and never heard about the Green Party, and they were all tuned into it. So with that one race, it led away to a couple of other things. In 2014, was it, when Eric Garner got killed in Staten Island? Mm-hmm. There was a big outcry for justice. And the worst part about all of it was the district attorney that refused to indict any one of his killers decided to run for Congress. Mm. So once again, this is an injustice. Somebody has to do something about it. So I ran for Congress in 2015 against Dan Donovan, who was a district attorney, who wanted to now be Eric Garner's family's congressman. Mm-hmm. And so that caused another wave of outrage and people realizing that they use the Green Party as a way to funnel their anger and frustration from the streets and get it out to the political arena and hopefully make change.
So, what was the result that Donovan became the congressman in Staten Island?
Yes, yes.
And how many votes did you get?
I don't remember the exact number of votes because it was really upsetting because the weekend before the election, a lot of the Democrats in that part of the island felt, for some reason or other, that the Democratic candidate was going to win. Even though I was at an NAACP candidate forum with the Democratic candidate. And this particular candidate, during the whole Black Lives Matter marches, he, as a city council person, helped promote these signs go around saying Blue Lives Matter. So here he is at the NAACP forum with me, and I'm not allowed to speak. It was like this one thing, he had to leave early, so they would just give him all this talking time. And so somebody asked him about that, like, did you, in your city council district, distribute signs to store owners saying Blue Lives Matter? And then he would keep saying, well, all lives matter. It's like, yes, we get that. But did you distribute? And he just sort of refused to admit it, even though everyone knows he did do it. And the thing that really burned me the most was like, you're at a National Association, you know, the NAACP, the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, and you cannot say Black Lives Matter in this thing. And this is the candidate that, sadly, a lot of the black residents of this community wanted to support, because it's this thinking that in an election, you have to vote for who you think could win, right? And that gets you into this thing where you're always going to vote for a bad candidate because you think they could win, as opposed to voting for the person that really represents your values, really represents your issues.
Who can really win if everybody votes for him.
Exactly. And sure enough, and I told people, I said, look, you know, if you think about a candidate could win, I could win this race. The numbers are there. This is a special election, you know, because the previous congressman got indicted. He was going to jail. He said, I have to resign from my post. It's like, yeah, you have to resign because you're going to jail. That's why you have to resign. But so it's a special election. Not a lot of people knew about it. It was up to us as candidates to go around to the communities to let people know about it. And what had happened was there was a point in my campaign that so many people were rallying around this cry for like ending police brutality, especially on the North Shore of Staten Island, especially, that some of the Democrats got together, and one of them actually approached me and said, would you consider dropping out of the race and giving your support to our Democratic candidate? I looked at her like, and she saw us like, oh wow, that was really rude, wasn't it? I'm like, yes, that's completely rude. And why do you think that the people that are going to vote for me would ever vote for your candidate? What is this assumption? You know, it was really...
It's a democratic arrogance, no?
Exactly. It's always, you know, it's like, if you're not voting for this person, then you're electing this other person. And that's what they finally hit me with, like, the weekend before. People that supported me for, like, the 8 weeks I was campaigning out there, they saw this article that this one Democrat wrote, who was actually working for the opponent, right? He wrote this op-ed, and it was like, oh, I don't know about the splitting the votes thing. I'm so afraid. We have to vote for this guy, then get him out. Then next time, it's like, you guys, you lost. You already lost. You're already compromising your values for this idea that this candidate's going to win. The Republican candidate, he did one candidate forum with me, and the Democratic one. And that was the only one he did, because he realized I would always get him on his failure as far as not indicting anyone in that Eric Garner case. It was like, after that night happened, I guess his team said, do not appear in another forum with James, because he's going to chop you down to bits. And so that was his strategy. He just didn't show up to things, and he just sort of waltzed in with whatever Republican money. The Democratic National Convention didn't even give the Democrat in the race money.
Oh, God.
So if they didn't believe the Democrat could win...
Why?
Right. Exactly.
Now, you're running as a public advocate, for a public advocate position. Why did you choose that position?
So public advocate is a very interesting position. It used to be the president of the city council, and they actually changed it around. I forgot the exact year, so I'm sorry for not knowing that right now. And it has as much power as a city council person, whereas you can introduce legislation. But the most important thing about the public advocate, it's a watchdog. It's a watchdog for city agencies and also city elected officials. So if you go to, like my sister, that my new found half sister that I just met, when I first met her, she was in the homeless facility, right? So, you know, her husband did whatever, wasn't paying rent, so her and her two kids were in the homeless system, you know, the shelters. And the shelters, they found her a place to live, ironically, on Staten Island. That place that they found in Staten Island was an illegal rental. And so it had all these problems, like the sewage was backing up into it, all this kind of stuff. So then the city came in and said, we're taking you out of this place, we're shutting it down, and we're moving you into a hotel. The hotel says, sorry, we don't take referrals from the city. So then she goes right back into the shelter system again with her two kids. And at this time, she was also going through, you know, trying to go to school, work a job, raise the kids, and she actually had a nervous breakdown from this. And she's still not doing too well. She actually went into a couple of medical facilities and everything. It's really heartbreaking. And it's, to me, that's one example of how the city failed in so many ways. The city should have never put her into that illegal housing. The city should have never referred her to a place that she would get kicked out and thrown back in again. You know, that's only one scenario. We hear about, like, the things with child welfare. You know, they don't do proper vetting of foster parents. They don't do proper visitations. They don't do, and they have people on staff, you know, people might, on the outside might not agree with this, but I actually have worked with people on the inside that people lie about things that they put on reports just so they could do whatever they want to do. It's really upsetting. And so that's the thing that the public advocate should be doing. The public advocate should be looking into these agencies. When somebody comes to you with a complaint, they're supposed to go into the agency and do like a thorough review of that agency, find out what the issue is, and get rid of it. You know, whether it's the supervisors in charge, whether it's a process, whether it's not enough money. You know, like we see, the schools all around us are crumbling. The city's like, we don't have money. But the Campaign Finance Board has a ton of money to do 6-1 matching for candidates that are running for office. I mean, candidates that could raise millions of dollars. So if you put that math together, it's like, well, where is that surplus where you can raise 6 times the amount of money that like a $600,000 candidate's running right now?
That's correct.
Why shouldn't that come back into our healthcare, our housing, our education? There's no reason. So these are the things that the public advocate should do. They should be at the face of the mayor. They should be at the face of the controller. They should be getting the support of the people and going to their city council people to actually put through legislation or to endorse legislation the public advocate does.
In the current situation, what would be the 3 most important issues you will bring as a public advocate?
Yeah, well, I guess for me personally, I mean, because I remember I was a little bit older than Xavier when I had my first interaction with a abusive cop. And the only reason why we have abusive cops on the force is because we don't have any level of accountability for when they act that way. You know, an abusive cop can do something and they know there's a blue wall of silence, nobody's going to say anything, and they could just continue doing their job and whatever and get retirement and all that kind of stuff. So until the day that we actually put through some kind of legislation that says, no, if somebody does something egregious, if they misconduct, harm, killings, or whatever, and we find that they acted inappropriately and it resulted in an injury or a death or whatever, they should be dealt with, just like any civilian should be. I mean, we've heard so many scenarios of cops killing people, drunk driving, but they're still allowed to be cops. But if a civilian drunk drives, you know, they're locked up. So we have to really address that. That's one of my biggest issues. Because like I said, what I've gone through and what a lot of my friends have gone through, that's something that affects me personally. You know, the other thing is housing. I mean, my God, we always hear about there's not enough affordable housing in this city. Right. the mayor gets up there, the public advocate gets up there, and what they do is they attack people that are trying to save their houses by like maybe doing short-term rentals, like either on Craigslist or Airbnb, and they're saying, oh, they're taking away affordable housing from the city. It's like, no, they're not. These are homeowners. Their spaces that they're renting do not fall under affordable housing guidelines or rent stabilization guidelines or anything like that. What the city needs to do is actually build more affordable housing. And the only thing that we're hearing that's anywhere near affordable housing is more prisons. They're talking about closing Rikers in 10 years to allow them 10 years to build more prisons locally. Not acceptable. There's a lot that we could do. So those two of the things. Of course, there's more jobs. There are tons of jobs we could do in the city, but it's all about getting visibility of what the budget is. The budget's proposed early in the year. City council votes on it, but there's no transparency. As public advocate, I want to really give transparency to people, and probably even give them the power to vote on these budget things. We have that right now with the city level, where we do city council. Oh my God, the spending. I can't think right now. Participatory budget. Yeah, so we allow residents in the communities to vote for participatory budgets, but we don't do anything like that citywide. So. My son, he's lucky. He goes to a public school that we love, but it doesn't fall in line with the other public schools. So our penalty is that we don't get the funding that other public schools do. So as parents, we have to do fundraisers or whatever, save whatever, and bring those resources that we want in his school. Other schools, like some charter schools, are allowed to take public school space, don't pay anything back to the city. Meanwhile, like Eva Moskowitz and those crew make millions of dollars off of the whole system. So for them, it's an industry. It's not about education. It goes down to the testing. So it's really, so like I said, public advocate touches so many things, and it's really hard for me to just look at like 3 items, because when you walk out of your house and you go to the subway or the bus or whatever, and you see the people's faces, and you see the frustration and the languish and the just exhaustion of people having to work 2 or 3 jobs in the city just to stay in a house, and people working 2 or 3 jobs and they're homeless. Yes. This is the richest city in the world, and people are working jobs and they're homeless, living in a shelter. So these are the kinds of things that I'm really looking forward to having other city council candidates run as Greens that really understand that it's not just one issue. There's many issues. That's why I am a Green Party candidate. The Green Party's founded on these 4 pillars of nonviolence, social justice, grassroots democracy, ecological wisdom. Because with those 3 pillars, it's really a foundation to build a better society. And until people sort of open their eyes and realize that, and stop looking at this as spoilers or people that can't win or whatever, we're doomed. We need people to just wake up and say, what they're saying makes sense. Especially when you look at for example, 2013, when de Blasio won, I think the voter turnout might have only been 28%. So it's like 12% of the people or whatever elected de Blasio to be their mayor out of everyone in the city. So that shows you, if they knew about other candidates, if they knew about the Green Party, Libertarian, Socialist, or whatever candidates, if those candidates were allowed the same equal access to the press, to public forums, to televised debates, then we would have a different city. We would have a city that's actually representative of by and for the people. Not to be corny, but...
Maybe a Green Party public advocate.
Yeah, started with the public ad. What I would love to see in this year's election, I would love to see, even if I don't win as public advocate, I would love to help other city council candidates, Green Party city council candidates, win the races. To me, that would be a bigger victory than if I won as public advocate.
Well, we wish that you win. We'll be interviewing you as the next public advocate.
Oh,
Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.